All right, everyone, we start off today with analysis of the third GOP debate, the also-ran debate. Of course, without Trump there, people are basically just tuning in to see other people clobber one another for the second place finish. It seems to have been more fiery, which some people predicted, actually, including some elements of the legacy media, like, you compact the stage, you'll have more time to attack each other, basically. And that seems to have happened now, like before. I'm currently giving a cold reading based solely on what I've seen people reacting to the debate from. So I have not watched the actual debate myself. Nor, by the way, did 99% of the other people with an opinion about it, so maybe mine is a little bit more educated because I've been doing this sort of as an experiment for a while. Instead of watching the debate, you watch people's reactions, and then you see if your own predictive analysis stands up, and then you watch the debate. And I think probably I was right again. Of course, much like with the other debates, it's kind of formulaic because the people that are up on stage have fallen sort of into a pattern of behavior. And sometimes it's like not even from just the election, but their pattern of behavior for years before that. So the reading is that Nikkihaley, once again, had a competent performance rhetorically, which she has consistently. She's not a bad speaker. This time, though, going a little bit off because Vivek Ramaswamy appears to have gotten the line of the night, which could be why he's trending in politics right now and the other people there aren't. Ron DeSantis delivering the average Joe performance. Nothing terrible, nothing great, again, as before. And then Tim Scott rambling about Jesus, of course, and that's basically the debate. As far as Vivek's line, though, he called Nikkihaley Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels. And I thought that that was very funny. She had a reaction here. Link in the description. I should probably pull it open, otherwise I can't read it to you. Her reaction's a little bit confusing. Again, we can judge that Vivek managed to get under her skin because she's responding at all, but this was her earlier. Vivek, I wear heels. They're not for a fashion statement, they're for ammunition. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what she means by that, and half of the rest of the internet appears to be doing the same thing at the moment. Nobody has a fucking clue what Nikkihaley is even trying to refer to here. So clearly that was a good linguistic shot. By the way, his statement was very, very sly, because he wasn't simply insulting Nikkihaley and her warmongering rhetoric. She basically is like Dick Cheney. As far as the heels, it doesn't. He could have also said Dick Cheney with ovaries, but that would have been seen as sexist. So he decided to focus on a fashion statement. But he's also attacking Ron DeSantis at the same time. He managed to do this without even naming him. How? Because of the boot controversy with Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis, again, is alleged to wear lifts in the heels of his boots. He has a broad plethora of different wonky-looking boots, and they all appear to make him about 2 inches taller than he really is. I think he's probably about 5'9". Does it matter? Absolutely not. Is it amusing? Absolutely yes. Unfortunately for Team DeSantis, they took the bait. Vivek is making this reference to talk about not just Haley, but also about Ron DeSantis, not on policy, but on his particular fashion choices. That may actually be the first part of Nikkihaley's response by mentioning that it's not for a fashion statement, but calling your heels ammunition. I don't know. Again, he's referring to you as being a warmonger, and the first thing that you do in your response to him is bring up ammunition, something typically used to go pew pew with a firearm. That's interesting. Again, he must have wheedled her pretty well for this to be the response, and I don't know what staffer gave the thumbs up to her making this tweet, because I think actually, unlike some notable politicians like Mike Pence, she actually knows how to use Twitter on her own. But very confusing. So I don't think it'll move the metrics at all. At this point, it's basically a done deal anyway. Team DeSantis has hemorrhaged too much money and wasted too much time, although he had advantages. Nikkihaley's still rising, probably rises a bit further, but again, all she can do is basically strangulate DeSantis. Ramaswamy keeps getting in these one-liners and quips and going on trending, but to some people, I look at it and I think it's funny. It's just bants, political bants. But in this hyper-politicized climate, a lot of people have become more cult-like with regards to the people they support, so any attack on them whatsoever is seen as asshole-ish. And I think Team DeSantis and Team Haley, which combined, that's 25% of the GOP support right there, probably none too happy with regards to that. So I don't see any metrics moving. Tim Scott should just drop out. Again, if he doesn't have a big day, you fall into like 2 points nationally. You're, I think in 4th place in your home state, far behind Haley. Her home state is also South Carolina. You're nowhere near the front of the pack. I think Tim Scott should probably just push it in and say, and drop out, regardless of whether he endorses anyone or who he endorses. Hutchinson needs to drop out. You do need a compacting of the field. This is something, by the way, some Trump fans are inordinately afraid of that. They're like, oh, everyone, please stay in through the first few states so that Trump can lock it up. Keep strangling each other. You're going to have at least 2 candidates with some degree of pulse in the starting states, at least to begin with. And those will be DeSantis and Haley. Again, unless one of them goes broke campaigning, they probably have enough, at least for streamlined campaign purposes, to stay in. Nobody else really belongs in the field. Christie will stick it out simply because he's there solely to bitch and moan about Trump. And he's waiting for others to drop out, I think, because he's like, well, if any of these other people do drop out, I'm the most vociferous opponent of Trump, which means that any, like, anti-Trump supporter of theirs, like as not, supports me. Maybe I end up at 3 or 4 in some of these states, and, at the very least he can claim that he was there. I think it's partially for his ego. So this is my cold reading of the GOP's 3rd debate. I think there's one more of them before Iowa votes. I just can't see anything changing over the course of not that many weeks until voting begins. I can't really see anything particular changing what ends up happening with the GOP primary. I think that Trump will win every state. I do not believe that Iowa is magically going to go to DeSantis, or to Haley, for that matter. You can talk all you want about ground game and campaign engagement and blah, 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 bitty blah, and Trump is 5 points below in Iowa where he is nationally and stuff like that, but it's probably an insurmountable total. And then looking forward to the additional states, again, if you haven't come in the first, the top 3 in Iowa, basically can it and go home. But, I mean, why even bother waiting to be humiliated and come in like 5th place or something like that? There will be people, by the way, who stubbornly vote even for people who have already dropped out. This happens as well in primaries and in general elections. There's a famous example, Fred Tuttle, actually, who ran in the state of Vermont, essentially to just cock-block a neocon Republican who was trying to get into the race. And he dropped out and endorsed Pat Leahy, actually, the Democrat who's still in Congress, I think. Has he left now? I think he's retiring after this term or something like that. But he dropped out and endorsed his opponent. Said, well, half of this campaign was literally to make a movie, and I can't imagine how much money he made considering how many copies were on the shelves in Vermont there for several years. But it's become a bit of a Vermont canonical history. There should be a statue of Fred Tuttle, by the way. But he still managed to get like a quarter of the vote, even though he had endorsed the other dude. There were people that refused to vote for Leahy. They just voted for Tuttle anyway. A handful of Republicans and then people who really liked the dude or people who just really hated Leahy. They still voted for him despite him explicitly endorsing his opponent. And so we've got a field now that's a little bit more narrow. There are really only 3 people in it that matter to any extent other than Trump, and Christie's only on that list specifically because that he's going to stubbornly stay in to be a jackass. And meanwhile, these other people will strangulate one another's campaigns, especially DeSantis and Haley. So we'll look at the polling over the next few weeks, but I wouldn't expect it to change appreciably. That's about all. Peace out.